Good afternoon. This is my video where I talk about construction, SME, construction related tasks that have come across my path in the role that I play as a mentor and a support for SME contractors in Ireland and the UK. One of the things that's come up more and more in the last number of weeks as work seems to be getting busier and SME contractors seem to be getting more work to tender seems to be the whole question of the use of the RIAI blue form of contract without quantities. The question seems to be constantly becoming a hot potato when it comes to contractors. What I've discovered is that as I support them in some cases to review tenders, review contractual position, and also to help them, adjudicate before they submit their tender. And the question of the blue form keeps flagging continuously, and over the last couple of months it's become a real discussion subject. And what do I mean by that? In Ireland there is a form of contract for small works, and mostly I think these days small residential projects that would be £1 million, sub £1 million, maybe up to £2 or £3 million, where the architect uses the blue form of contract which has been developed by his organisation, the RIAI, the Royal Institute of Architects of Ireland. And the purpose of this contract effectively is to provide a mechanism by which the contractor, the client and the architect can engage with each other in order to ensure that the project is managed successfully and all of the stakeholders have their interests taken care of. The challenge that has arisen in recent times with this form of contract has perhaps been its interpretation or maybe even its use, and the challenges that have come as a direct result of it. And what I'm seeing is that contractors, the purpose I suppose of the blue form as I understand it is that its focus in terms of the scope of works is on the drawings and specifications. They are the hierarchy of documents. In fact, they're the only documents in the RIAI form of contract. And the question is, and that means without quantities, so there are no bill of quantities being produced by client side. There invariably might be a small form of tender which would break up the project into the various elements from prelims, substructure, superstructure and all of that. But generally speaking, the purpose of that document is for the contractor to fill out his final pricing, so it's broken down, and it would help the architect or his quantity surveyor, or indeed the client themselves, to do a cross comparison between all of the bids that they receive for the project. But it's not a bill of quantities, and there is no bill of quantities in the blue form, and it's without quantities is its function, its purpose. The challenge is it's also without design. So the contractor is pricing the job in a traditional way. It's designed by the architect and or the design team, and it is executed and built only by the contractor. What's been said to me in the issues and challenges and worries that I've seen many SME contractors have is that the quality of the design information, the completeness of the design information, the full coordination between all of the elements, the architectural work, the interior design work, the mechanical and electrical work, the structural work, and in some cases lighting design work as we become more sophisticated, that the quality of the information, not quality, but the completeness of the information being provided to the SME contractor at tender stage is not comprehensive enough for them to complete their pricing without them becoming involved with design. Now, this is a fairly fairly challenging and controversial, that's the word I was tripping over just now, discussion that's been had probably for decades in Ireland, and not just in Ireland. There are similar forms of contract on the RIAI version in the UK and indeed internationally, but specifically in Ireland is what I'm referring to at this point in time. Controversial because clients will go to their architect and they will ask for a price to design and help them deliver their project. Architects will give them a price, the client will go, ooh, that price is too high. And as a result of that, over time, probably over decades, the completeness and scope of completeness of the information produced at design stage prior to tender has got to a level, and that level in some ways is not sufficient for tendering. Now, there's an argument that says that, and there is an argument that's been made, not just said, that a contractor should have the capabilities, he should be a bona fide contractor, he should have all of the skills necessary to know what is required when an architect puts a lighting switch and a loop to a light outlet on a drawing, or if an architect puts together a performance specification for heating and advises that the heat pumps are to be used and that X amount of just sets the criteria for the design for the heating, the performance output, not the design, and gives that to the contractor to price. And what the contractor invariably finds himself doing is going to a specialist heat pump supplier, mechanical electrical contractor, getting them to do calculations to establish, based on the thermal ability of the building, the thermal mechanics of the building, and puts together this, sizes the outdoor units and the duct sizes and capabilities and the power required to etc, etc. So a specialist subcontractor, M&E, mechanical electrical subcontractor, will put together a design along with manufacturers, and they'll give that to the architect for review and approval. The question is that contractor, that mechanical and electrical contractor, invariably will work for the contractor who has no design input or design. There is no, under the blue form, as I understand it, there is no contractor design elements. This is not how this contract works. The yellow form is the preferred form of contract, which includes quantities, but we're not talking about that. But there's no contractor design element in the blue form. Yet contractors invariably tell me that they are continuously being asked to be involved in design. Then they say, when I've challenged them as devil's advocate, I've challenged them and I've asked them the question, but coordination is your job. It's a very important part of your job to make sure that everything on site is coordinated, that the mechanical, electrical, duct, AV, IT, security, home automation, all the amazing services that now go into homes today that didn't exist some years back. Ventilation systems that nobody had, you just would open the window in the past. So all of these mechanical, electrical services, solutions, plus the fact that you've got cove ceilings, you've got details of interiors and architecture and interior design, all of which have to be coordinated with the mechanical electrical services. And I'm using mechanical and electrical services as an example. They're not the only design element that seems to have creeped into the world of the contractor under the blue form, but they're an example that helped to make the discussion. So going on from that, what I'm hearing continually is that we're being asked as contractors to price the job. So we're pricing the job, even if the information is not fully coordinated in the design, and even if the information in the design is not complete. Now, under the blue form of contract, there is nobody saying at tender stage that the design is fully complete. And in fact, there are clauses within the contract that give the architect the right to complete the design post-contract. So the challenge is that the contractors are being asked to produce a lump sum fixed price, which means please don't ever ask for any more money, and get the job done, fully functional and operational. Yet, in many cases, the design is fluid. So there you go, there's a mechanism within the blue form for variations. The architect has the power to issue instructions to vary the design, add scope to the design, and all of those things. But the question, I suppose, that's being asked continuously, and I'm hearing all the time, and I don't have a horse in this race, I'm just throwing this out there for discussion. If the blue form of contract is a lump sum fixed price form of contract, and even if it's not, most if not all, in fact all of the forms of tender and the preliminary documents that have been sent with the blue form and with the drawings and specifications for the tender, all of those documents request that a lump sum fixed price is to be provided. Now, if you add scope, that's a variation, and I think nobody's arguing with that. If you omit scope, that's a variation, nobody's arguing with that. However, the quantum of the omission does have a significant effect on the contractor's profitability. That should be discussed, but under the blue form, and very often under the terms of the form of tender, they don't get that luxury. But let's forget about that. What I'm talking about here today is design. The blue form of contract does not call for any form of contractor's design elements. There is no contractor's design. It's all client-side architect and architectural design team, client-side design team's design. No contractor design. So what happens, and we're back to M&E again, and I'm saying this because it helps with understanding it. Imagine, for example, you have a house, it's 2,500 square foot house, it's very well insulated, up to an A grade level of insulation. And the performance specification, the output specification put in the tender drawings says that calls for a specific technical output from the air conditioning unit / heating and cooling unit, whatever it is. Maybe it's not cooling, heating anyway unit. The outdoor unit, the air source heat pump, which is invariably what people are using these days. Just for the sake of talk, imagine that specification is done. And what seems to be happening is the architect is requiring that the contractor goes to his specialist supplier, gets them to do all the calculations and establish that the ambient temperatures in the house, based on the U values, based on the A grade structure, based on the passive design of the house from a thermal mechanics perspective, the output is X. And what seems to be happening invariably is that the information then from the contractor goes back to the architect. He reviews it and signs off on it. Yet, under the blue form of contract and under the RIAI guidelines, the architect takes no design responsibility for that. He takes design responsibility for the fact that it's been produced to him, that it's located wherever it's located, that the manifolds for the underfloor heating will fit in the location or be covered by furniture or whatever the design happens to be. But he's not taking design responsibility for when the client is sitting in their house a year down the road and they just, no matter what they do, cannot get the temperature up to what they want it to be. And it turns out that when, between the jigs and the reels, when all the investigation is done, that the design of the outdoor unit or the pipework leading to and from it were not man enough to achieve the output. That's design. And that's purely the contractor's work. He's done all that work, but he has no design responsibility. These are my questions. How do we resolve? How does this happen? And how do we get to a place in time where it's fully and properly understood? Because from where I'm sitting, and this is M&E is just an example. There's a big fuzzy area that seems to be, or seems to have grown, not be growing. It's been there a long time, between what is the responsibility of the contractor as a bona fide contractor who's not a designer of anything. Where does coordination and design and all of these things fit in? And how does the contractor protect himself from these challenges? So I'd like, in the comments below, please, to get a conversation going on this subject, because I think it's very fundamental. Very interested to see and basically hear from architects, designers and client-side professionals how this works, because I think it's worth a conversation.